I had issue. I started recording, and at some point, my voice cut off. It happened like twice or thrice, yes. And I recorded to the end, and I found out that some parts were not speaking. I was not speaking. I was walking, but I was not speaking. So I told myself, let me just meet with you guys and brush up and share resources with you, and you guys will go in search and study on your own. Okay, so the last class we stopped at floats. We talked about the display properties and the positioning, all of that. So we were supposed to start with floats. And for some of you, you would have learned about floats, but for others, this might be like a new concept. So what is float? Float is a CSS property. It's useful when you want to float elements around another element. So I would say, for example, if you want to float a text around a div or around an image, then the float works fine. But you will learn about more advanced laying out of elements, and you hardly use floats, except if you want to. So, but it's good we learn how to use floats, so we know what's there for. So whenever we see it in a code, it's okay. This is what we can use floats for. Okay. So let me go to my VS Code. Okay, before I go to my VS Code, let me just take us to the notes on floats, and from there illustrate how you can use it. So as I said, this is what we use the float property for. We have different values. We have the left, the right, and the default, which is float none. For every element that does not have a float value or a float property, it's always float set to float none. And we have the float right, we have the float left, and value for the float property. So we can see how it is being done. We can add the float property there into the elements we want to float around. And we can read more on it. We will learn. So this is a semi-project, or a project that I give you guys to learn how to lay out elements using floats. Yes. Okay, from there we'll learn about creating responsive designs. Let's go to my code and let's see. So we are going to create an index.html file. And I'll create my boiler templates. And from there, I can create a div here. And in this div, let me say I have my image. Okay, my image tag. And I'll add my source attributes to it, and I'll add an image to it. Let me see the images I have here. Let me go to the browser and search for some images. Okay. Image will I look for? Yeah. Let me say I look for food. Any food, whatsoever. Okay, these are fruits. Oh, I can use okay, let me use fruits. Let me use fruits so that I will make it okay, I already have fruits here. So I'll call this floats one. Float image one. I already have a float image one. Let's see. We have them. They have an image here. Okay, let me go for the fruits. Let me and call this width 1. I'll look for another image. So this one's the next. And I'll call this width 2. We have a width 1 and a width 2. Okay, fine. Back to my code. I'll now look for it. I'll find the path for the image and look for width 1. And I'll give my alternate text. As I mentioned, it's always fine we add an alternate text to images. I'll call this width 1. And I'll add my paragraph. You see I have like here on the width. Words. So I can duplicate this and I'll just have to change my image here. Also, we have width 2 here. And let's see how this looks on the browser. So we now have our first image here, and we now have another image here. Okay. So I can name my divs. I can give them a class. The class name, I'll call this container 1, and I'll call this container 2. Container 2. So I'll be working with internal styling, and that's because I'm working on a single page, so I'm not working on multiple pages, so I'll just flow with internal styling. But it's always best you work external styles, especially when you will be working on huge projects and you have multiple pages. You will not want to mix everything together. So let me target my images first. I can target all images and give them the fixed width. So, because I could see one of them is a little bit big, so let me say give them 40%. And a width of 40%. Are you with me? This big. Reduce this one to 20%. Okay. They all have the same size. Ladies, are you with me?
Yes, ma.
Okay, so we have them having the same size, and we have pliable. So let's say if we want to float this text around this image, or want to float this image to the left or to the right and wrap this text around the image, then we'll use the float property. You know, it's similar to what we see on the magazines. You'll see some images here and text floating around the images. And that's the same way how float property works. So you can implement that on your web page as well. So let me target the image I want. So I'll have to add class names to my image. Well, I can make all of them float here. I can give them a float property. And let me say left. Let's see what happens. All of them are floated left. And if we add more text, let me increase the text to just see how it works when we have large number of text. Large words. Let me say So you see, we now have the text wrapping around the images. Just as I mentioned, as we could see. But let's say we want to target just one of the image. I'll have to either target them using the container one, or the image in the container one directly, or I give a class name to the image. But for me to make it easier, I'll just target the container one image. First, the container one image. Image is a direct child, so I can use the Angular. For the container one image, I can give it a float left property. And let me target the container to image and give it a float right property. So now if we could see, we have the first image floating to the left and the other image floating to the right. So another thing we need to know about floats, it's very important. Let me reduce the length of this text here and show you something. So now we have it looking like this. We have this text floating around this image. But let's say we have a footer here. And we have some text here. Copyright. Actually, close the button. Someone left a message. What does the okay, so Sumaya, as I mentioned earlier, the right angle bracket there is to give size to the direct image of the container. So the last class I talked about combining CSS. So what happens here is now container to image, it will look inside the container and look for the direct child, which is the image, and add the styles to it. So instead of me targeting, I cannot target the image element directly because we have multiple images on the page, but I want to target the image inside the parents with a class container. So I'll just use the container and class and single out the image, the direct child of the in the direct child of the container, and add the property to it. So this is just like a right angle bracket that is used for that. So Sumaya, did that answer your question? I'm sorry, I lost you guys. You guys. No fucking bad the picture. Understand that come out the network. Bad bad. How would you like to say charge? You think you're going to tell them? You know, I don't want to tell them. That's also we now for home. No. Okay. It's here. Binsu, how are you? We don't start, but some others on the internet, I think, don't move someone out. I don't know. So we work on floats, actually. We're working on floats, and someone asked the question that I was answering to before the person left. So floats, basically, because you were not here, I'll just revise, and while I wait for them to come. So Bintu, you read the notes? Did you read the notes? Hello? Okay. Bintu, can you hear me? Hello? Bintu, can you hear me? Hello, Bintu, can you hear me? You are muted. You, if you did talk, so you have to unmute yourself. If you are muted, then if you are speaking, then I can't hear you because you're muted. I don't want to be sure you're hearing me before I go ahead, before I move ahead. Mm. Mm. Others are not here yet. And oh, okay, let me go ahead. So as I mentioned, I wanted to show you guys what happens when we have a footer here. So I'll give, let me say copyright. Let's say 2024. And let's see what happens here. So if we could see, the copyright has floated to the left as well. And we don't want that to happen. We want it to be at the bottom because even though we have text floating around, but we want the copyright to be on it. We don't want it to float around. So what we need to do is we have to target the footer element and apply styles to it. So we can give it a clear, since the image that we floated in container 2, we floated it to right, so we have to give it a clear property. Right, so let's see what happens. So what happens is the footer is now at the position where it's supposed to be instead of floating around. So I can add my, margin here and just see what happens. Let me add my margin right here. Let me give it like the 2%. That's fine. So I now have increase which container. Okay, margin right. This is second container. Let me add this to, because I'll not be able to see it to first container. Yes. So now we have a margin here at the first container. So they could not see it here because it's not much text here. So this is how we float images around, and this is how we can, clear the following properties, like the following paragraphs, if we don't want to make them float. So this is how we do this kind of designs on a page. So let me go back and reduce my text. Let's see, okay. It's okay, because there are no much text, that's why it's being altered like this. So I'll go back and remove my styling. And then we go to the next okay, fine, we're fine. So let's go to the next topic on the slide. So we have to you have to go through this project and see how you can design something like this. Well, let's say, okay, I'll just try to design this first 3 parts or these 2 parts, and you will now add these 2 parts to it. So let me do something like this. So as we could see here, we and we have something like float layout, and we have footer here. Okay. So for me to implement this design, what I'll do is I would come here and write my div, and I'll give this a class called, side menu. And here I would keep my list of paragraphs. I can give list, but I want to use this paragraph here. Let's see what we have here. We have home, about, services, and contacts. Save home. About. We have services. And we have contacts. So we have home, about, services, and contacts here. Let's see, and we have another div, which is like the main contents. Let's check our design again. We have the main contents, and we have some paragraph there. So I'll give let me call it the main content. Okay, and here we have a H, I call this a H2. Its main contents. And we have a pie graph here. Let me give it 100 watts. Okay. So let's see how this looks in our browser. So this is the way it looks. We have, or we could see we have these spaces in between our home about, we didn't give any margin of padding, and that's because these pie graphs headings, they comes with their padding and margin, I would say. So for me to get rid of all of those disturbance, I'll just target my universal selector and give my padding of 0, and my margin also give it value 0, and also I'll set my border and my box size into border box. So this will prevent my elements from overflowing or disturbing around. So if you could see, we don't have these spaces anymore because I've got rid of all of them. So let's say we want to make similar design like this. First, if you could see, we have a color here. For me, I'll just use borders to separate them. So to just explain, I'll target my side menu and give it a border property of 1 pixel. I'll say solid. Let me give it black so it will stand out. And I'll do the same for the main contents. I'll give the same border property. So now we have something like this. Okay. What I want to do is I want to do a similar design as I mentioned like this. I'll have to make sure I float my elements. Okay. So let me come to the side menu and float it left. Let me float this left. Let's see what happens. So now we could see our side menu is now showing at the left here. And this is now here. But let me say I want to float it left as well because I want to give it that same design. Let me float it left. Let's see what happens. So now I've floated it left, but because of the width, you can see it's not, the space is not enough for it. So I can adjust the width. So I'll say width. Let me give it like 70%. Let's see what happens. Okay. Let me give it 50%. So now if you could see it here, but we still have this copyright here. That's the footer. So for me to get rid of it, I can come here and target my footer. And then I will give it a clear both property. And we no longer have the footer disturbing us. So I can increase the width. Let me say 80%. Let's see what happens. Okay, let me give this again a width of 20%. Okay, so I can even give this 15%. 15%. So you see the struggles we have to work with floats, and it's much like me, I hardly use it. In fact, I don't use floats to make such design. So I can work with the height. And let me increase the height and say, let's see what's here. I want to make it smaller. Okay. At least it's almost, you can adjust it by giving it, say 10. So it's almost close. I can now give this padding if I want to just ensure that content has some padding. Let me give it 2%. Let's see what happens. Okay. So it's now larger than this. So I need to increase this height as well. So this is very, very complex, sincerely. So you will learn how to make simple designs when we start using Flexbox and grids. So for now, this is very, very complex. But trust me, if you play around it, you'll be able to get a design just like this. You can add colors to it and you get designs just like this. So you can play around it, just get used to it. Especially if you are starting how to code, then I'll advise you to take time to do all of this. Let me just let this look good. Okay, yes. So I like making my code look good, but let me leave this. Okay, so this is how Float works basically. You can move elements around and adjust it how you want it to float. But as I said, as I mentioned earlier, it's very stressful to make complex layouts using Float. So I'll advise you to pay attention as we go to learn Flexbox and grids, because these are layouts and properties that makes life easier for developers. Okay, so let me go to what we have here. Next is how to create responsive designs. Still recording. How to create responsive designs. It's very important for us to learn how to create responsive designs, because we'll have situations wherein we want users to view our page, our website on their phones and be able to view all the content and also be able to, use all our features. So it's very important for developers to get it back of their mind to always make their code responsive or their web pages responsive. Responsive meaning if you're using an iPad with a smaller screen size, the user will be able to see all what you've done and the code will be organized and presentable. And if the person is also using a mobile phone with a smaller screen size, they'll be able to see all your features and it will be presentable as well. And the person is working on the desktop. So once you start working on your web page, the first thing that should come to your mind is how to make your page responsive. And I have some few tips here on how to make your code responsive. So first, you have to use flexible units. I spoke about that in our previous sessions on how we can make use of relative units like them, em, percentages, and some using the viewport height, which is VH. These are all relative units. You can go to MDM docs and learn about them. So using them helps to make your web page responsive. And other than using fixed units like pixel points. So if you want to make your website responsive, you should make sure you minimize the usage of pixels and use relative units when necessary. So for example, you can see instead of the person using pixel, we used instead of us using pixel for this container, we use with the same for the column. So we also have implement media queries. So media queries is like the backbone behind making web page responsive. So media queries like having breakpoints and applying styles to the breakpoints or to the screen size, targeting the screen size and applying styles to them. So as you can see, we have max width here, which is talking about all screen size, smaller than or less than or equal to 768 pixel. Okay. Smile, you made it back. Welcome. Samaya, I saw your question on the chat and I was trying to answer, but by then you left. So you are asking about the right angle sign. I mean the right angle that I gave to I still have it here now because I've passed it. Mark, can you hear me? Oh, okay. So it's there basically to target, for instance, if we have a main content class here, if I want to target the H1, which is a direct child to this div, instead of me, since I may have multiple H1 on the page, instead of me adding class to this H1, I can directly add styles to it using the class name content and using the right angle brackets and targeting the H1. So it will now, the CSS will now look for the class and look for the H1, which is a child to it, and apply the styles to it. So that was what I did. But if you look at the videos from the last session, where I talked about combining CSS, then you see how that is being done. So I was talking about media queries. I was explaining about how to make your work responsive. And it's very important that once we start working on the page, we think of how we can make our pages responsive. So I spoke about us making use of relative units instead of fixed units. Relative units, I spoke of that. That's the EM, RAM, the EMs, the percentages. So this all helps to make your code responsive. You know, when I was working on my first website, I'll not say my first website because before that time I had been creating website that was not of standard, but at least they were websites. I would say when I was now learning web development and I was given a project to create a portfolio, it's not my current portfolio, but at that time it was a portfolio. So I used more of fixed units. I was busy using Pixel. I was busy using Pixel all over the place. And I now reached a point where I was told to make my code responsive and I suffered, like I struggled. I had to reach out for help and people were saying, oh, okay, because of the pixel, I had to go through my codes and make sure I adjust them and use relative units. So I don't want you guys to make similar mistakes. So make sure you use more of relative units and less of pixels because, however, there will be need for you to use pixel at some point on your page. So I also spoke about media queries, and this is like the backbone behind making your code responsive. And it's very, very important for you to learn about media queries. And it's like breakpoints, target certain screen size. For instance, if you want to target your mobile devices, you want to use screen size like 375 to 4 something. I think I mentioned some of the screen size in the notes. You can look at it. So we have example here that states max width, which is 768 pixels. This talks about screen sizes that are, less than or equal to 768. So all screen size less than or equal to 768 are being targeted here, and whatever styling you add to it will apply to that screen size. So of course, with this again has been emphasized to use to expansive images, max width, and all of this. And we also have here, like, I want to encourage you guys to use a mobile first approach because that's what I always used. Well, some people might have different preference, like what they want to use. Some people want to start with desktop first. Some people want to start with whatever first, like everything is open, whichever you want to do, but I'll encourage you to use the mobile first approach. It's very, very simple and it makes like a life easier for me. So what that means is you first design for smaller size screens and then you adjust for larger size screens. So we'll see how that is done shortly. So the mean width, as I mentioned, for max width, but mean width is like the opposite. it targets screens that are less than or equal to the screen size mentioned, like the specified screen size 768 in this case. So we have again here another strategies for making our codes or our web page responsive. We have to use flexible layouts. Like Flexbox, we'll learn about grid. Immediately after this, we'll learn about Flexbox. So Flexbox is very useful to make your page responsive, and it it makes things easier for us. So this is how you use Flexbox. We learn about it soon. And also make sure you always test your web pages on multiple devices, like the smartphones, tablets, desktops. So you see how they look and you can adjust it based on how they look. Optimized typographies. The relative units has been emphasized here as well. So this is it, and how to maintain touch-friendly UI, because it's also important. For instance, like the button, sufficient paddings for touch targets. So you not have to make your padding, your button so small that someone cannot even touch it. So you have to make sure that you adjust your buttons and all of that. Just make your page have good user experience. So you can read through, as I mentioned, we have min width, max width, we have min width definitions here. We also have combining media queries here, wherein you can give a min width of 78 pixels and a max width of 1024 pixels. So you'll be targeting screen size from 78 pixels to 1000 pixels. So whichever screen size fall within that range, all the styles you've applied, you've stated there, will apply to the page. And we also have orientation. So when your page is in landscape mode, some styles will apply, and when it's in portrait, so other styles will apply. But I've never used this in fact. I'll have to try it one of these days. I always make sure I know how it's used on different screen size, but I'm not targeted like when it's on your web page, portrait or landscape. But you can give it a try and see how that works. Okay, so let's see how media query. Let's design something here and just see how media query is being used. So I'll just delete this. Yes. Hi guys. So let's add some content here, and let's see what we can do to add media queries. Okay, let me leave this here. And here I'll add my buttons. Here, and I'll add my image as well. Let me give it nice sauce. Okay, I'll still go with my fruits. And I'll give my tiger text here. It's too much. Let me give 150. Copy it as well. I'll now give this a class name, container 1, and let's have it here again. I'm saying I'll give it container 2. So fine, we have, let's see this on the page. So we now have this here. So first, if I want to apply or make this page responsive, what I would want to do is this. I'll first see how it looks on the smaller screen size. How can I do that? Let me change the image. Okay, it can be the same, no problem. So how can I do that? I can do that simply by entering my, hello guys, okay, by entering my Chrome Developers tool and see how it looks on different screen size. So using my F12 since I'm using Chrome. I mentioned that as well, and you can check our previous notes. You'll see how you can go into web development, the Chrome development tools. Yes. Sorry guys, I connected my phone. So because I connected my phone, what happened is, so because I connected my phone, it switched to my phone's internet, and that affected, because I'm using my phone for audio and I'm using my laptop to present. So did you miss anything? Hello? Hello, ladies. Will I continue? Do you have like any questions? Oh. Hello, ladies. Do you have any question? Can you just state if you can hear me? If you have any questions, so I can, so I'll know that, okay, on points. Oh. Sumaya, are you there? Hello. So if you can see, except for the text, yeah, but the images are fine. So I may want to, increase the, or center the images so to look properly. To look fine, I'll just target the P elements and give text align center. And let's see what happens here. Okay, text and all center. It's not bad. It's not bad. Can give my images a margin bottom of, let me see, 3%. That works for you. Okay, it has some space here. I think this is looking fine, but if we go to larger screen size, it's not looking fine, right? So I may want it to look nice on larger screen size. Ladies, can you hear me? Okay, so this is by 9. Sumaya, are you here? Can you hear me? I was asking. Oh, okay, just said yes. Okay, fine. So here I can, if I move like or try to increase the size, it doesn't look fine on larger screen size. So I can target at which screen size is not looking fine. So here, let me see around here. I don't like it around here. So I can say from here. But then they are fixed size. Some people want to use the defined, we have like defined screen size for tablets, screen size for desktop, and apply styles to them directly. But for me, let me say I want it to look nice from here. From here, maybe I already took my sizing from the responsive width here, or the responsive section here. So I want to float my images around at that point. So I'll come here to my styling and add my media query. For media query, start with art, media, and I'll open my bracket and target my mean width. So like for screen size, from this point to the desktop, as you can see, it's not looking fine at all on desktop. So that's why it's looking fine on smaller screens, but it's not looking fine on the desktop. So what I'll do is I'll target it for mean width, that means from that current width. Let me add the width. This is 6 pixels. And I'll add styles to it. Okay. So I'll now add styles to it. So what I'll do is I'll make my images float. So I'll target my images and make them, float. So I'll say floats. Let me see, let them float left. So let's see what happens here. So at this point, it's fine. But if we go, let me refresh my screen. So at this point, if we go to certain screen size, okay, so I need to adjust the images width because it's 100%, so there is no way images can float around it. So that's an issue. So yeah, so because it's 100%, that's why you can't see images. So it text floating around. So I can adjust the width blank, and I'll give it, let me say a width of, let me give it the same 20%. Let's see what happens. So now it's floating. It's okay. Let me go to F12. At this point, you see they're floating. So they are floating here at this point. Once I reach here, you see the image is floating. It will be like this here, and once I reach here, you see the image floating, and it's better. So I can now target my container one image. Let me remove the float property here, and let me just give all image is like this, and let me target my. Of course, we learned how if I didn't want the other part of the image to float, I would have like use the clear property, as I mentioned earlier, clear left, clear both, or something. But for this, I want to target the container one image. Let me make this float left. And I'll target the container 2 image. Sorry guys, I'm seeing the call. Looks right. And let's see how this works. Okay. Let me see. Container 2, not container 1. Okay, I think it's better like this now. It looks better like this. Okay. It's better like this. So I can target my container to paragraphs. Now let me see, clear left. So fine. So we have now our image showing like this. So you can work on it. If you want to adjust it at this screen size, you can also adjust it basically. So now it's not floating again. together with this other text, rather it's floating around this. So this is how we can change style in a different screen size. So let's say now that we are here, maybe I want to change my color at this point, then I can change it. Say, okay, let me change my text color here and give it gas color and give it something like this. So you see at this point, we have this text with this color. It's not looking fine. But at this point, we have our code nicely designed. But once we reach this breakpoint, we'll see. And if you want to adjust it here as well, based on your style you want, you can adjust it. So this is how we use, you know, we'll make our screens, we'll make our code responsive using breakpoints. Okay, you can target other breakpoints and say, okay, at this point, I want to add some other styles. You can add styles here as well. And as I mentioned again on the slides, there is another area that we can combine media queries. For instance, at this point, at min width 768 and maximum width 1024, you can add style to it as well. Okay, you can add styles to it. Let's say we have a min width here. The min width. This min width. Okay. 768. So, and we have next week. We have 1024 pixels, if I'm right. Control. Okay. So now we can add our styles here, and we can say let's give it a body color. Give it a background color. Let's say black. And let's see what happens. We see once we reach from 6, let's look. Okay, let me take it directly from here. 786 here. We'll start from 786. We'll see it sounds. So from 786 until 1024, you see that our background is black. So you can add styles based on your screen size. And we also have responsive. You have your iPhone here. You'll see how it will look on your iPhone. You want to see how it will look on your iPad, this is how it will look. And you can change it to just see how it will look on different screen size. And we have extensions as well that I always use. And you can see how this is used on mobile with this extension. We have so many extensions out there. So you can look for them and, make your code responsive or your web pages responsive using media queries. So that's all I have for this media query. I want you guys to learn how you can adjust, your pages and practice, like just practice. So we'll now go to our next topic for today, which is Flexbox. So we'll learn about Flexbox. I feel so bad, but I believe it's recording, and I'll take my time to just put them together. That's a whole that's not easy as well. Getting like uploading it to YouTube, I'll have to sit down, edit some parts that maybe wasted or had internet issues and upload it. You may not have it immediately after this session, but you definitely have it. I'll try my best to put it together and find where I can get strong internet and upload it to you guys. So we've heard about Flex, or we've learned about it before. Some of us and some of you that may have not learned about it before, but you've heard me talked about Flex. So what is Flexbox? So for me, Flexbox is a way of laying out elements. It simplifies laying out of elements. So it also adapts to different screen size. You can read through the notes and you learn more about Flexbox. So you have a container and you have items, and that Flexbox layouts the container, the items on the page using different properties. So you can read through about Flex. As you see, it's a game changer for modern web design. You see this everywhere, and it allows cleaner and manageable layouts. Okay. So we have Flex properties. So we have Flex properties. So for you to understand Flex properties, what I want you to learn is we have Flex container and Flex items. And there are properties that go to Flex container, and there are properties that you have to write on the Flex items. So if you take the Flex item properties and write it on the Flex container, you'll definitely see nothing happens. It happened to me as well. There were times where I don't know, I understand Flexbox, but I didn't know how to. So I was just guessing. But then I learned that you need to make sure you know that whatever property you put into the main container is supposed to be there, and properties for the Flex items are supposed to be there. Keep that in mind. So once I start talking about properties, is this a Flex container property, or is this a Flex item property? So we have few Flex container property here, which is the Flex direction, the Flex wrap, the justify content, we have the align items, and we have the align content. We'll see how this works. We have Flex properties, which is Flex go, Flex shrink. We have the shorthand Flex, which has a Flex go, Flex shrink, and Flex basis all on it. And we have the align self, and we have the order. So we'll see how this works shortly again. So let's start. We have the Flex direction. But before we start, let's see how we add Flex to our container. So let me remove all of this here, and let's see how we use Flex. Let me just remove all of the stylings here and get back to an empty page. Okay, let's say I have my header here. And in this header, I have a URL elements, ordered list, and here I have my list items. Let me say I have my home, I have my about, and I have my contacts. Again. And I have my services. Let me say services. Okay. So this header and URL. Let me see what I have on my browser. So this is what I have. I have my home, about, contact, services. Let me add some. Let me target in the header and give it a background color. Let's say it's black. Let's see what we have here. Okay, this is fine. And I'll give it a color of white. Let's see what we have here again. So now we have our elements or our list elements here. We have them here. Okay. So let me target my ordered list. These other let me give it a list of none. Okay, this is fine. So now we have this. Let's say we want to make this flex. We can target the UL and make the items flex. Okay. So now I can target the ordered list and add my display flex here. Let's see what happens. Now we have it displayed flex, right? Just like that. Initially it was blocked elements. We have them sitting on top of each other, but now we could see they are now in a row form. So flex by default has the property called row, and we have what is called flex direction of row and flex direction of column. So if you could see, it's now in a row form. It's changed the order. So let me give this a height. Let me say 20. Let me see. 20 black. This one is 20 image. It's a report height. To be yeah, this is fine. But instead of this, let me just give it a padding. Yeah, that's fine. Big as well. Listen to percent and see. Okay, this is not bad. So we now have the elements. When we use display flex, we'll see whatever elements we have, it will turn into a row form. So if I get back to my notes, you'll see that we have a flex direction, which is a property that you can use. By default, it's in row, but then we have different flex direction property. We have flex direction that is column, we have row reverse, we have column reverse. So let's see how this works here. So let's add a flex direction. By default, as I said, it's row. If I give it column, we'll see it's back to where it was. And let me give it row reverse. Row reverse, let's see what happens. If you could see it's here, row reverse, and it's also aligned flex end. So let's see column reverse. Column reverse. So what happens if you could see, we now have it's reversed. If you could see, we have the home. It's no longer in the right order. Initially, the home was on top, now it's at the bottom. So this is how it works anyways. You can play around it. So let's say for this case, we have it in a row. Let's see if we put it to row. Let's see. So this is important for you to know, because there will be time when you're working on your responsive designs or your web page to make them responsive. Maybe at one screen size, you want to make it display the flex direction to be row or column. So it's useful for you to know that you can turn it into a row as well. Again, you can turn it into a column. Okay. So now we have what we call the gap property. That again has to go inside the flex container. So the gap, we can give it any value we want. Let me say, you can give it percentage you want. And let's see what happens. Now we have like 3%, we have gaps in between them. Okay, so this is how we give gaps to our flex, items. So let's go to our code and see what we have next. We have flex wrap. Okay, so before we go to flex wrap, I would like us to, okay, fine. So what flex wrap does is, it's if you have plenty items in your flex container and there is no space for it, so what happens is it will wrap. Okay, so let me say let me increase this here. Let me increase this here. Okay, fine. And let me add flex wrap here. By default, it's no wrap, but let me say flex wrap and let me give it wrap. So you can wrap it. There are different values that you can use. So what happens? Let me okay. So initially we have it like this, but once I start going and there are not enough space, what happens is, because it's coming to the next line, so it's wrapping the elements, it keeps wrapping the elements, keeps wrapping the elements, keeps wrapping the elements. So this is how flex wrap works. Okay, so it's very important for you to learn it again, because there will be some circumstances where you want your items to wrap once there are not enough space. Okay, so you can use the flex wrap property. So we have different wrap. You can wrap it, let's see the values. You can wrap it wrap reverse, and it will wrap them reversely, or no wrap. Okay. So we have notes on flex wrap, you can read it. Then the next one, we have justify content. So this is used to justify content around the cost axis. Yes, around the horizontal axis, I would say. So let's see how this works. I'll now go back to my code and remove all of this plenty. This item I have here, and just look at this one. And let's say, okay, now we want to align this. Initially, we learned about using paddings, we learned about using positioning, but then see what flex box does for us. So I can come here and give my justify content, and let's give it a center property. Let's see what happens. So you see, our items have been centered. So we have other property that we could say space between. So it's added space between. Don't worry about this. We have padding. So you're seeing, we have what is called space around. And to push them, but to give them space around. So we can, lots of them actually, you can play around them and see. We have flex and so let's see what happens. So initially it was positioned here, but now we have flex and so let me show you something. Let's say we have a tag here, and we call this our logo. And so we have a header here. So automatically I want to keep my header flex. Display flex. And I would want to give it a justify content. Let me give it space between. Let's see what happens. So now we have our logo here, and we have items here. But what happens is, because of we are pushing it now to the right, it's having this, but we have what we can fix with it by using flex basis. But we'll learn about flex basis soon. We'll learn about it soon. So for me to fix this, what I'll do is I'll just give it a space around from now. Get back to it. Okay, it's still because of the width. So let me fix that one. You can come here and leave here. Let me give it to you. I'll flex this because it's now acting as an element, even though it's also a flex, but it's now an item in this flex container. So let me give it to flex this. Different spaces, so 40%. So now we have it looking good. Yes, we now have it looking good. So these are cases where maybe you want to add a logo and you add the text, your icons here. So you want to use Flexbox to lay it. So if you want to make your menus or your heading, you can use Flexbox to lay them out how you want. Okay. So I didn't want to use Flex Basis now, but thank God you know how to use it. And I'll still show you how we can use Flex Basis later on when we start working on Flex items. So I just wanted us to see how we can lay out elements using Flex. So we also have, worked on the justified contents. Right. Let's see what we have next on the slide. Okay, it's justified contents. Can read that. We have align items. So align items is very important. Like if you have your items set vertically or even horizontally, let's see how this works. So in this case, I want to use let me have like a section here. And this section, let me have my div. Let's see, let me call it contents one. Contents one, and here I'll have, let me give it a heading, AHK, and we don't have H1. I thought this was H1, so I wanted to give it H2, but it's fine. So let me say contents one. Contents one, and I can duplicate this and call this contents two, and I can call this contents three, and let me contents one. Okay. Okay, then we target all elements with contents and give them a border of 1 pixel solid, and I'll give them let me give them blue. No, that's not, let me give it, and let's see what happens. Okay, and let me give them let me give this. Okay, I'll go target section because this is the only section we have here. The section, let me give it display of flex. Let's see what happens. Okay, so let me give this padding. Okay, fine. And I can justify content justify content to the center. Okay, it's now at the center. And so let's see how align items work. We now have these boxes here and we have them next to each other. So let me say I have content one box with different size. So different heights. Let me give this a height of 300 pixels. Let's see. Okay, let me give content 2. A height of 200 pixels. Let's see, and let's give content 3 a height of, let's say, 400 pixels. So we now have them, if you could see, we have them in different sizes, and we want them to be at the center. So we can use the align items. If they are sent horizontal, let's use the align items and see something. So I can come here and give this align items to the center. And what happens if you see? They are now at the center. Okay. See the one that is small, it's now at the center of this one. So we have align items again that is this way. So what happens is its center, it's based on the text, okay? Based on the text. And we have, so this is how we can work with align items for horizontally. You can try it and see what you get. So let's say, okay, if we have this this section, we have the flex direction set to column. Let's see what happens. So now we have it like this, right? So let me remove justify content. We have it like this, fine. So let me align items to the center. Let's see. So we now have them at the center. Okay. And let's say we have can we move this because of this? Let me align them at flex end. When it's column, can align them. See, we now have them at the flex end. So I can align them vertically using these align items. So flex that. It's been aligned at the start of the page. So this is how align items work. You can play around it and study more. This is just an introduction to align items. And we have align content. So this only works when we have a height and we have our element set to flex wrap. Okay, that is when align items will work. So fine, if I want align items to work for this, the align content, sorry, I'll first let me make this row again. I'll first give it the wrap, flex wrap, a property wrap. And fine. So now I can add my align content, give it a height of, let me see, it's 50 pH height. Okay. And now I can align my contents. Can align it to the flex end. Let's see what happens. It's not aligned to the flex end. And I can align it to the flex stats again. Let's see, it's here. So this only works when you have a flex wrap. So you can use different alignments, align content properties here. Whichever one you want. Space around, let's see. We have space around, like the vertical, it's now in here. So this is how you work with align contents. Okay. Let me take you back to our slides. So we now have item property. We have flex go. So what flex go does is it takes as much space as you give it a value. So we have this here. We have our items here, content 1, content 2. Let me say we give them, we give one of them, let me remove these values, a flexible property. Let's say we give this one a flexible of 1. Let's see what happens. It has taken a larger space than the others, okay? And let's say we give this one a flexible of 2. And let's give this a flexible property of 3. And let's see what happens. So you see the one with it has much larger spaces. All of them has, taken the full, all the spaces available, and they've distributed it accordingly. So this one has a flexible property larger than this and this. Okay. So we also have another item property here, which is the flex shrink. It's the opposite of flexible, so it makes your property shrink much faster, or your div shrink much faster than the others. So let's say instead of flexible, let's give it flex shrink. Let me see. Let's remove all of this here. Let's see what flex shrink does to content 1. Let's give this 5. Now let's check our browser. Okay. Okay, then I need to change the values here. Let me give this 2. And 3. So I can come here directly and see what happens. Okay, it's wrap. Let me remove the wrap property. See. And let's see what happens when we try to shrink. See this content here, which is content 1 shrinks much faster than the others. If you could see, shrinking more faster than the others. Okay. Let's check it again. So this is how shrink works actually. But you hardly use shrink, sincerely. Really. And so let's see what happens. So if you can see, they're shrinking based on the way we distributed it. So this is how shrink works. You hardly use it anyways. For me, I hardly use it anyways. I hardly use it. I can't even remember if I've ever used shrink. So this is how flex shrink works. And the next item we have here is flex basis. So this also, it works just like flex go. So let's say if I add a flex basis here, and give it let me see, 200 pixel. Let's see what happens on content tree. Let me see. Okay, let me increase it. Let me give it like 60%. So you can see now we have the width of this one larger. So if you want any flex item to get a larger width, then you can use flex basis. It works like width anyways. Okay. So what else do we have? Okay, the flex property, short-term properties. You can add a flexible flex shrink and flex basis on a single property. Those are really for margin padding. So we have align self. So you can align a property and alter the alignments for particular elements. So for particular items. So let me see, we have okay. So let me say this one. So let me align. Let me align say. Next thing. Okay. So I need to give it a height. Maybe. So now, because I've given it a height, you can see it's aligned self flex end, okay, by default. So this is how it works anyway. So yeah, I can align it back to flex stats. At the start, I can align it to center. So it's at the center. So you can align an element, based on a particular element and alter the alignments, basically. Okay, let's see what else we have here. We have the order. So the order property works by changing the order of the items. Let's say now we have a contents like this, and I want to change the order. You can come here and give this an order, a higher order. Let's see what happens. Let me give this an order of 5. Let's see what happens. So content 1 is now in front. Initially, content 1 was here. So let's say we want content 3, content 2. Before content 1, I can give it an order, a higher order. So now we have content 2 here and content 3 behind. So this is what it does. So even here, I can give services a higher order by targeting its. Let me give this a class name. And let me give it a lower order because it's so I can give it an order. Let me say I give it a lower order. Let me give it a negative value. And let's see what happens. So services is now in front. You can see it was at the back, but because it has a lower order, all of them are like the default is supposed to be 1 or 0. Let me check. As I said, the default value is 0, sorry. So if you get negative, that means it's smaller. So now you can see services now in front. So this is how you change the order. So if I want contact, I can give contact a class and change the order as well. So this is all we have for today. I wanted to give this project a try, and this looks just as we have it on the kind of project. And in the next class, I'll take you along and show you how you can develop something like this. Okay. If you have any question, you can reach out to me. Let's call it a day.